That was good. That was pretty funny.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 4 of the Jiu-Jitsu Times podcast. I am your host, Kevin Bradley, joined by my co-host,
Kevin Gallagher. How are you guys?
It's always going to have that pause.
Yeah, it's unnatural. We're going to work on the title intro. We're going to get together. We're going to practice.
105 episodes in, it'll still happen.
Right, exactly.
Today we're joined by just about the biggest guest we could possibly hope to get, and he's not a Ralph Lauren model, but he could be. He is the executive director of Gracie Barra North America and world famous hundreds of times over black belt Flavio Almeida, joined by his head of school development, David Weber, both Gracie Barra guys, and we're going to be talking about some controversial stuff that's been going on in the community, famously his confrontation with Ralph Gracie, as well as just the ins and outs of Gracie Barra, learn more about it, just because I think it's a subject everyone's really curious about. So Flavio, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thank you guys for having us, and I appreciate the kind words. A little bit of an exaggeration, I like to think, but I appreciate it anyways.
It's always weird to hear people saying your acclamations before your name. It's you deserve it though, my man.
Yeah, I hope to be introduced one day as guy who scored a 3-point shot one time at summer camp. Kevin Bradley. So far, that's the highest I've. That's it. I peaked.
The highlight. you peaked in the 7th grade.
Now, awesome, a lot of the people listening will probably be already aware of what happened at the IBJJF No-Gi World Champions and Championship in 2018. But could you just run us down from your perspective how everything shook out with you and Ralph?
Yeah, well, it's been almost 12 months now, so I'll do my best to recall. A big part of it is from my memory, but since I was knocked out, part of it is from watching the video over and over, and also from my friends who were there with me. So I was coaching one of the Gracie Barra athletes, and I was approached by Ralph, and again, we had a cordial relationship. I grew up training on the same academy as him, the first Gracie Barra school in Brazil. So when I saw him, I greeted him as respectfully as I could greet. So I shook his hand. I said, "Master Ralph, how are you doing?" I continued to coach our athletes, the Gracie Barra guy, and he said, "We need to talk." And I said, "I'm available to talk." And then he said, "Did you guys open a school in my area?" And I said, "Ralph, you need to talk about this with your uncle, Master Carlos Gracie Jr., who is the founder of Gracie Barra." And then after that, he just hit me with his right elbow. It gets right close to my nose, enough to get me down. As I'm coming down, he grabs me by my jacket, I had my backpack on me. So he throws a few uppercuts. I fall down. I'm out cold. The second individual called Lincoln, who is somehow associated with him, I don't know exactly how, he comes around, and then as I am trying to come back up, so I had to regain my conscience partly, and he strikes me and he says, "Don't mess with the Gracies." So that's my memory, right? And then I go down again, and then my friends are trying to protect me, and then Ralph takes the opportunity to go around everybody, and then he kicks me in the head. So that was the end of the attack. It takes me a little while to come back up. My friends help me. I go up, and I just realized what happened. I was extremely disappointed and upset, and as I'm going out, I'm thinking like, what should I do, And as I'm coming out, I'm heading to the door. I make eye contact with Ralph, and he's like instigating for more violence. At that moment, it's like in my mind, it lasted like 4 hours, but it really was just a split of a second. I was like, man, I better just get the hell out of here, because, if I try to get my revenge right here, right now, this thing's going to turn into something really, really bad. I most likely will be a brawl between the Gracie Barra guys and people that were with him. So I just decided to walk away from it, because it was bad enough as it was for Jiu-Jitsu. So I decided to walk away from it. And then that was the end of the first episode of this Mexican soap opera that this thing has become since then.
What you sustained some pretty serious injuries too. You had some memory loss. You lost a couple teeth, right?
It was pretty bad, man. I lost my 2 front teeth, and it was, like when things like that happen to you, it's very hard for you to understand exactly what's going on. And we're all fighters, so we try to be tough. We don't want to be like, oh, this or that. So we try to act tough, but the reality of it is, I noticed my 2 front teeth were missing. So I went to the dentist. The roots were shattered, so there was no way they could do anything about it. And the thought that I had in my mind was like, man, I gotta go home. And I don't want my daughters to see me like this. So the dentist who saw me on that day did an okay job. The best that he could possibly do. Let me tell you this. So he gave me something to wear temporarily. And then I had to undergo major surgery to reconstruct my 2 front teeth. But the next day was very weird. I was, and Dave, he came to the house, and I was very disorientated, and I didn't know, I didn't realize, doctor.
That's the thing about concussions. You don't really realize it until other people have to come up to you and be like, "Hey, bro, you're fucked up. you need to take a little break and get back together again." So yeah,
exactly. And what I recall is that I was actually Dave came to support, and I was like explaining to him what happened, but I think I was just mixing up English and Portuguese. Right?
Yeah, it was the first time that you'd ever done that with me, and that's when I knew that something was definitely wrong. For the first time ever, he was trying to explain things to me in Portuguese, and he had never done that before. So
and you don't speak Portuguese,
and I don't speak Portuguese.
Right. Just to clarify, you don't speak Portuguese.
I hear all the time. I'm too old. I can't pick it up. So everyone has to speak English with me, and except for some of the bad words I understand. But beyond that, my interaction with Flavio has always 100% of the time been in English, and he's always been very well aware that when he speaks to me, it's been in English. And for the very first time, it was in Portuguese. So that's when I knew that some more medical attention was needed.
Yeah. So Dave, said, man, something's not right with you. Like, you should go see a doctor. So I called a friend. His wife is a doctor, and then she advised me to go to the ER. Then I went to the doctor. They did a CAT scan. Didn't find anything, but based on the symptoms, they diagnosed me with a concussion. And then they recommended me to just rest, and try to not do much for at least 30 days, to prevent any possibility of further neurological injuries. That's what the doctor told me. So anyways, I set out for quite a few weeks, and then the whole process to actually reconstruct my 2 front teeth took about 5 months. It's a long process, man. But I finally
it's expensive too. It's not cheap.
2 fake teeth now, and that it is what it is.
How are you feeling now? Is your health recovering? You having any symptoms? You feeling good? Back to training again?
Yeah. I went back to training a month later, hard training a few months later, and my health, as far as I can tell, my health is fine. I think there's always, when something like that happens, man, as tough as it tried to be, I think you become face to face with your own vulnerabilities.
Right.
There are some emotional things that you got to go through, some psychological things that you got to go through. But I like to think that to the best of my abilities, I'm recovering well, and that I just hope to come out of this better than what I went into it.
That's one of the worst issues with concussions are the psychological problems. I mean, you start messing around with the neurological processes and the chemical processes in the brain. It's a bad thing coming from someone that suffers from concussion problems. It ain't cool to get concussions. So I can feel for your pain in that regard.
Kev,
yes,
you
yes,
got
sir.
concussion?
Maybe 1 or 2 or 12 or 15.
I mean, that's good, because I just thought you were born like that. That's good nice. That you got an outlet. I mean,
good thing you live in Jersey, kid.
I need to be 50 miles away from you minimum at all times. But just to go back into your you talked about you had a cordial relationship with Half prior to this. So there was nothing like this that had happened before. Like any kind of confrontations?
No. I mean, everybody's aware that Ralph is a dangerous individual, Growing up at Gracie Barra, you're taught to just kind of keep a distance, because short-tempered, you never know how he would react to a joke or anything like that. But, I've always been a very respectful guy towards anybody, regardless of who they are, So my relationship with him was always cordial. I was never too close to him because when I was training, I was going through the kids program, and then eventually he moved to the United States. So I never really got to train with him a lot, but, I knew him, and there was a cordial relationship in place.
Did you guys have any kind of prior confrontation at all about the gym?
Not physical, no. The problem started, it has more to do with the role that I play within the overall business development of Gracie Barra in the United States. My role involves overviewing the development of our brand and the network of schools, our community of schools around the country, United States and Canada. So our relationship started to deteriorate when Gracie Barra professors started to show interest in opening Gracie Barra schools in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, so in Northern California. So that, if I remember correctly, it was back in 2017 when I first heard through mutual friends that Ralph was upset with the prospect of Gracie Barra expanding towards Northern California. And then when there was a prospect to open a school there, and that became serious, out of my respect to him and, to the Gracie family, I'm like, man, I know Ralph, there's no reason for him to be upset. The reality of it is we're going to be, we represent the Gracie family, we're going to be, it's the legacy of the family that we're moving forward with each school that opens. So I'm just going to give him a call and try to reason with him and show him that opening a Gracie Barra school is actually going to be a good thing for him. So he didn't react very well to that phone call. He got upset and he said, if you guys open a school anywhere near here in this area, bad things will happen. I'm like, what exactly do you mean? Like bad things will happen? That was a phone call, right? She's like, you know what I'm talking about, So I'm like, well, and what exactly do you mean by your area, your territory? What is that? And he's like, well, this whole area here. And I knew there was a guy who was interested in Sacramento, so I wanted to ask him, well, let's see what he thinks about Sacramento. So I asked, Sacramento, does that include Sacramento? Yeah, I have a school in Sacramento too. So, it wasn't the turnout that I was expecting from that phone call, but, I did my part. I tried to be respectful and I tried to reason, but I ended the phone call respectfully. I said, okay, I understand how you feel. I'll pass the word, to Master Carlos, and it is what it is, So I tried my best, but, the fact that he was threatening wouldn't stop us from doing what we do for Gracie Barra, the organization. Each one of these schools, it's the livelihood of these instructors, that we're talking about here. It's hundreds of people that are going to have a chance to learn high-level jiu-jitsu and to be able to be part of the jiu-jitsu community, So in 2018, we had a chance to open a school. So that guy from 2017, for his own personal reasons, he decided not to open anymore, so that didn't happen. And then in 2018, one guy decided to open in Morgan Hills. So the day before, Morgan Hills is in the Bay Area of San Francisco, about 30 miles away from an affiliate Ralph Gracie school, and about 90 miles away from the San Francisco school, from the Ralph Gracie Academy in San Francisco. So anyways, the day before the grand opening, that was a Friday. I remember I was in Las Vegas. It was the day after I won my last my last Masters world title. That was the day after. I was at the pool in Las Vegas. I got a text message from him saying, hey, man, what's up? I just want to double check. You guys are opening a school in my territory. Is that right? Man, I saw that. I said, man, I'm not going to reply to this because I don't want the situation to escalate any further. There's no point in continuing on this conversation.
We already know. He already knows you're open in there. We've talked about it.
Exactly. I mean, it's irrational, right?
Right,
so I'm
right.
Like,
He's trying to poke at you now, and
exactly. So,
right, exactly.
Let everybody know. Say, guys, I just got this text message here. People from Gracie Barra, but man, let's keep moving. Business as usual.
Right. So there was definitely an antagonistic relationship between you guys leading up to this point.
Exactly. I mean, he's brought it to a point that there's no point on having a dialogue.
Right.
It's irrational. All I can argue is is technically speaking about how when the Gracie Barra school opens, all the other jiu-jitsu schools in the area benefit from it. And any other school, not just Gracie Barra school, because whenever you offer a service and you do a good job, anybody that offers us that service is going to benefit from it. So
let me ask you a question real quick in regards to his mindset and maybe his intent. Obviously he's following some kind of an old school samurai code of don't infringe on my territory. This is my gym. And I think it revolves even more around more than just taking food out of my pocket. It revolves around this is my space. Like we're going to be the dominant school and you can't come here because we're going to crush you and do horrible things to you. And in the mannerisms of the old school ways of maybe jiu-jitsu in Brazil back in the olden days. Right. Do you think that maybe that was kind of like where his mindset was that?
I think so, man. It's hard. It's very hard for me to know how he thinks and what he thinks, but my own guess, it would be something like that.
So,
however, I would like to reiterate that, man, there is a lot of other jiu-jitsu organizations and jiu-jitsu brands there that he never seemed to be bothered by it, So that leads me to think that there might be something specifically about Gracie Barra that he perceived as a threat or as an act of disrespect, but I don't know exactly.
Flavio, we both know it's that you're too good looking. All right, you intimidate the other schools, and if you could just tone it down a little bit and stop having such good hair and a good beard, then maybe you wouldn't make so many people mad.
He knocked out two of those pearly whites, so it was intense.
Okay, yeah, but here's the problem. I'm looking at that picture right now, and he looks better without his two front teeth than I do with like all my teeth and like I don't know, like my whole face. So I don't know. I kind of
Braulio's team. He's a funny guy, right? So he tried to cheer me up, so he called me the next day and said, "Man, I'm sure you look better without your two front teeth than I look with my front teeth." I'll trade positions with you. I'll tell you that.
Funny.
Guys, real quick, there's two very important things for me to say. One is if I was sitting next to either one of you, a lot of people would say that you guys look like Ralph Lauren models as well.
That's good. So you level him out a little bit.
Compared to me, he looks,
That's what it is.
He's doing well.
Funny.
But,
that's funny.
But to say something really quickly about that kind of that old school mentality, that samurai code, whatever. I know that that's something that people talk about, and that maybe that's something that shouldn't be broken or should be. But the reality is, in this country, it's very clearly against the law to say this is my territory, this is my area. I mean, there's RICO, there's just all types of laws that are very clear about that. So, if someone wants to make that claim or whatever, it in my opinion, it's just very silly. It's anti-growth, it's anti-American, and that's just not the way things are done here.
Was kind of
yeah, you could go, Kev.
Sorry, man. That was kind of the direction that I was taking the samurai code in, and only saying anything. There may have been a place for that type of behavior in the early days of jiu-jitsu, in the days that Ralph was brought up in, and the only reason I'll say that is because there was a time where there was only 5 or 6 academies, and you would go train at another academy, and then someone would open up and steal some moves or some techniques from your gym and go out and open up their own gym and start running their own academy. So now you could say, well, they stole my stuff or they stole my techniques, so stay away. But we're living in a different world of jiu-jitsu now.
There's no secrets anymore.
There's no secrets anymore. You got YouTube, you got everything. You know what I mean? You will definitely be, if you have a good instructor, your game will definitely benefit from that. And there will definitely be like techniques and philosophical approaches that an instructor will take you to. But to have the gumption or have the ego to say that like, well, my jiu-jitsu is better and you better not come around here and steal my stuff, or have that kind of like territory mentality is like, there's no place for it anymore. And just like you said, Dave, it's frankly, it's illegal. So as much as I would like to say, and some people will kind of get back on that horse and say, well, this is the world we live in. You know what I mean? Flavio should take it like a man and do his thing. It's like, no, man, there's nothing warrior about that. Dude, you broke the law, man. you attacked someone in a civilian environment. I was there that day, and I heard about it like shortly after it happened, because I was hanging out with someone from Henzo's, whose name I won't mention, who told me, he said, dude, did you hear what happened? And I was like, what? He said, dude, freaking Half Gracie jumped Flavio. It was a whole thing. The cops came, he fled the scene. So I knew about it before anything else happened. And immediately the first thing I said to myself was, man, that's insane. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, why would you even think that that's a thing? And more importantly, what I want to say to you, Flavio, is I want to respect your ability to maintain calmness, because I think there's, to a certain extent, because of that warrior code, there may be somewhat of an image between people. And don't take this the wrong way. People saying, well, Flavio's soft, he should have went out there and fought for who he won. It's like, no, man, you're a goddamn grown up living in a modern world where laws govern us. You know what I'm talking about? You did the right thing by maintaining your cool and not inciting a riot. And I'd like to applaud you personally for that. So
well, I appreciate that, man. And the reality of it is, well, I've been training jiu-jitsu for 26 years now. So I'm technically old school. I've never heard about any sort of moral code, any sort of jiu-jitsu hidden bushido in which people cannot open schools. Never heard of anything like that. Master Carlos, what I know is Gracie Barra, because I've always trained at Gracie Barra, and that's all I know in jiu-jitsu. I mean, I interact with people from other teams, and I have amazing friends that are part of other teams. But what I saw is Master Carlos always wanted to have his students open schools close to him. Man, Draculino opened a school. I would walk. I'm literally Draculino's first school. I would walk. It was like a 10-minute walk from the Gracie Barra school. Okay, so I would walk there to train with Draco because I had friends that train with him, and I come back and train at Gracie Barra. So the mentality that I grew up in, if you want to talk about an old school samurai or bushido, is let's support each other, man. Let's round ourselves with all of these schools, and we all represent the same team because we can help each other. And when the sea level rises, all the boat rise. If you all do a good job, if we offer a great service to the community, more and more people are going to want to train jiu-jitsu.
Can I ask you a quick question real quick about that analogy? Is that a Brazilian phrase?
I mean, I've heard it many times, but yeah. I don't know where that comes from.
Another black belt friend of mine mentioned that to me before in those terms, and I was wondering if it was a Portuguese turn of phrase, because I've never personally heard it before.
It could be.
Yeah.
And it's about scarcity versus abundance.
Yeah, it's a good call. It's a great freaking phrase. I love it. I was just curious as a secondary thought. Sorry about that for destroying your train of thought there. Well, guys, I'll tell you what, man, this has been great, and I'm really enjoying this. I was hoping to get into some more information about Carlson Gracie, just because I'm curious about some of the background. So maybe we can spend a few minutes on that. Kev, you cool with that? Mind if I go down that road? I mean, we set our pieces. You know what I mean? You're on here, and this is cool. Obviously everyone knows. Like I said before, I was like, the elephant in the room is, hey, Flavio Almeida is here. Cool. Let's pretend like no one wants to talk about Half Gracie for 30 minutes. You know what I mean?
The guy who got elbowed in the face. Who's Flavio? Oh, it's that guy that got elbowed in the face in the no-gi world.
Right. Exactly. No, exactly. Well, I know and respect you as the formative figure of the jiu-jitsu community that you should be respected by. So I'm just curious, because I know a few things about Gracie lineage and a few things about the Gracie universe, the Helio Gracie and Carlos Gracie lineage. But I'm curious to talk to someone that has a more intuitive, mindset from directly from the source. So can you talk to me a little bit about some of the direct lineage from Maeda into where he directly coached, and why some of the reasons why some of the schools, and we don't have 35 minutes or an hour and a half to break it down, but maybe give some kind of an insight into that.
So I'll tell you what I know, right? And I'm actually very interested on that too, but it's just my own perspective. So it's, I joined Gracie Barra in 1993, okay? So early 90s. Gracie Barra was officially founded as 1986. What I do know about, when I joined, there was this Carlson Gracie. It was the best team, right? They had the toughest black belts. It was the generation of Amaury Bittetti, Valide Ismail, Alan Góes, all of those guys.
Laborio, right? Ricardo Laborio.
Liborio, man, those guys were like, what a lineup they had there. And I remember that Carlos was actually, Gracie Barra was rising, to meet, and be tough and be able to compete against Carlson. So we started to win on the color belts, and then eventually on the first World Championships, I think it was in 1996, Gracie Barra won. So I think Gracie Barra was first, Carlson was second. So the whole thing about Gracie Barra versus Carlson, I think it was amazing because it was always friendly and cordial. As far as I can tell, I was still a kid. But, man, the teams really made each other better. And then only after that, Alliance came, Nova União came. But, going back in time, Maeda arrives in Brazil, I think in the early 1900s. He teaches Carlos Gracie Sr. for a few years back in Belém do Pará, up north. And Carlos Gracie Sr. starts to teach his brothers, so Gastão, George, and Helio, for the most part. They move to Rio, and, man, they decide to open the first Gracie Academy. I think the first academy was actually at their living room. And then eventually business picked up and they had good connections. A lot of people wanted to learn Jiu-Jitsu. They're doing those Vale Tudo challenge fights really to promote how Jiu-Jitsu could help a person who was smaller overcome a bigger opponent. And then from the Gracie Academy, I think the first Gracie to notoriously depart from the Gracie Academy, the Academia Gracie in downtown Rio de Janeiro, was Carson. I think Carson had some sort of a problem with Helio, and he left and he opened his school in Copacabana. And then I think that, I don't know if anything happened, but I think Hall's Gracie followed. So that I know for sure. So on the same address, you had Carson teaching Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and then Halls was teaching Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So
that doesn't
team, same address, same mats, as far as I know. And it's kind of an interesting setup.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. There were actually two entirely different segments of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at that time, and they're training into the same building and the same mats, so just on different.
100%. Right, yeah. And it's interesting because if this was in the early '80s, I think. You fast forward 10, 15 years, the Halls Gracie clan, right, grew into becoming Gracie Barra because Halls passed away. Master Carlos was just an assistant instructor. He takes over as the main instructor, and he moves the school from Copacabana to Barra. That's why Gracie Barra. And anyways, Gracie Barra started to become more competitive, and then eventually became the biggest rivals was rivalry in Jiu-Jitsu was Carlson Gracie versus Gracie Barra. That was throughout the 90s. And from the Halls Gracie lineage came Jacaré, Fábio Gurgel, the guys that created Alliance, right? So that address in Copacabana, in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, was an address that is really a very important seed for our sports Jiu-Jitsu, because a lot of what we know nowadays as teams like Brazilian top team, American top team, Gracie Barra, Alliance, a lot of it came from were offsprings of that address, either on the Carlson side or on the Halls Gracie side.
That's pretty cool.
I got a weird it's always great hearing about Halls, just because the head of my the man who gave my teacher his black belt, Ed Marcio, he got his black belt from Halls. He was I think he was one of the Fabulous Five, I think is the word for it.
Yep.
And so he's got, we see his picture all over the place, and it's always crazy hearing, because the more I learn about the guy, the more I'm like, I don't like how could one dude do all this stuff in the short time he was around? It seems like a common theme with the Gracies of just
common knowledge is that Halls is the greatest of all time, is what people would say. They were the greatest innovator of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it was a very important figure to make jiu-jitsu what it is today.
He was the first one to start cross training with wrestlers and judo players and other martial arts disciplines, and tried and started to interconnect that.
Competitive jiu-jitsu, he was very involved on creating jiu-jitsu tournaments. He was an advocate that it was important for schools to compete with each other, to make each other better. He was really all for it, not just on the Vale Tudo MMA side of things, but also the sports jiu-jitsu. So I think we owe a lot of what's happening today with IBJJF and all of these federations. I think the mentality, the vision can probably be traced back to Halls.
That's cool, man. I wish I had more time to delve because I could literally talk to you for like 4 hours. But unfortunately, I got to get going. I got to get to work, man. So, Kev, you want to give us a little sign off here? You guys have anything else you want to talk about before you leave?
I might like I had a few more things to cover that we just we didn't have time. So I might continue this on a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Go ahead, dude. Whatever, bro. You know, you want to be the star? No big deal, bro. I'll just go home. Cool, no problem.
I don't want to. This is so much pressure.
Hey, bro. It's your show. Go ahead, man.
All right. I'll see you, Kev.
Hey, man. Flavio, it was a real pleasure to talk to you, man. I really mean that. And David as well, man. Good luck to you in the future and, Os and all that other good stuff, man. We'll see you, man. Take it easy, brother. Yeah.
All right. See you, Kev.
Yeah.
I'll just get that there. All right. No pressure. That's cool. All right. Hey, there I am. All right. So I honestly was hoping to just be able to geek out for another few hours just because the lineage it's so interesting and all that stuff. And I know there's not enough out there about that type of stuff. But when we were talking about prolific jiu-jitsu figures, it was really strange to see some really prominent people weigh in on this situation. One of the big ones was Renzo. How did it feel to be thrust into the spotlight like that in this way?
Man, first, I don't chase the spotlight. I don't necessarily, well, I'll be on the spotlight if there's a reason for it. The spotlight, I think it's more of a tool. Sorry. I think the spotlight is a tool for you to do greater things. So let me establish that right up front. And to be brought into the spotlight through a situation like this, it's hard for you to find like the purpose behind it. I wish this thing has never happened. I wish that for myself. I wish that for the Gracie family, for Ralph, for Jiu-Jitsu as a whole. But you don't get to change things that way. It happens. So now we got to deal with it. And it's uncomfortable because especially when you get hit, and you feel like, man, I'm a fighter, I have my pride, so to exercise self-control and to see stuff that people say online, like just a bunch of nonsense, all of those things are uncomfortable. But I think every situation in life comes for a reason, and I think that, if there's anything that of positive that can come out of that situation, it's just, I think us as a jiu-jitsu community evolving to higher ethical and moral standards that just to tell ourselves that this type of stuff is not acceptable anymore, back in the 90s or 80s, maybe, things like that would be a little bit more of a norm. But man, it doesn't need, those things don't need to happen anymore. And everybody loses. Nobody gained anything from this situation. Well, I definitely lost a bunch of stuff. I think Jiu-Jitsu lost quite a bit. And it really affected everybody negatively, So again, back to your question, to be brought into the spotlight on a situation like this is awful, but it is what it is. You just got to try to make something positive out of it,
Would you be, are you able to speak on your current relationship? Because I mean, the biggest figure to come out with an opinion about the situation was, I think, Renzo. Are you comfortable discussing your current relationship with him and like his schools, and has anything changed there?
Well, there is no relationship, right? Since this happened, I just, I isolated myself within an inner circle of friends and family, and I only talk to people who have my best interest in mind. So there is no relationship.
All right. Now, we learned some things about the pre-trial that's happening right now, and it's gone. It's been a very interesting process. How much are you able to speak on what's currently happening with Half? And I don't know if Lincoln is also involved in the court situation, but what can you tell us about that?
So, Dave, feel free to chime in or lead me.
Oh yeah, Dave, of course, yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can lead the way here, because you're more on the technical side of things.
Yeah, well, first of all, with your question with Lincoln, that process with Lincoln is actually already done. He's been charged. He's been convicted of a misdemeanor. The district attorney sought felony charges. The judge who tried Lincoln reduced it to a misdemeanor. He pled guilty to that, and he was given 80 days in jail. He had already been arrested and served a certain amount of time in jail. So at the point where he accepted his guilt and the misdemeanor charge, he was set free, and everything is finished with Lincoln. Now, as far as health goes,
Well, he did serve 40 days in jail, right?
yeah. So he had already served time, 40 days, and then at the time that the judge that he pled guilty, he was given 80 days, but it was reduced down to time already served. So he's well, I don't know what he's doing now, but as far as everything with health, it's very interesting. The same judge that reduced the charge, the felony charge with Lincoln, was also at that time, at the beginning, in charge of the case with health. And the district attorney was not overly pleased with the result that happened with Lincoln. So without going into too much detail, they put this case in front of a grand jury, and the grand jury officially indicted health, and with the felony, with the enhancement, with his intent to do great bodily harm or injury. And so now this case is in front of a new judge in Orange County. And last week we recently had the first pretrial. The district attorney and the judge made an offer to health. I believe that you guys reported on it. I made an official comment on that, though I wasn't able to go too deeply about it at that time.
Yeah, we had put out a story regarding the details that we were able to gather about what was going on, but it was good that you were able to also comment. We appreciate it.
I made a sort of a comment that I was advised that I could make, but at this point it's out there, and the attorneys said I can discuss it here. And from what I know, I wasn't Flavio nor I were in the chambers, and we weren't part of the discussions. But what the district attorney or the assistant district attorney told us was that an offer was made to health to do 180 days in jail or 6 months with 3 years probation. Some restitution was involved, and a couple other things were involved. But it's our understanding that he rejected that deal. So because he rejected it, from my understanding is, the judge always wants you to try multiple times to try to reach a deal to avoid trial if it can be avoided. So we're going to go back some point towards the end of January, and I believe that they will try one more time on a deal. And if it can't be reached, then my understanding is that the district attorney then will ask to set a trial date.
Now, this has obviously been a journey, not just for you two, but for the whole Gracie Barra family. At this point in the process, how are both of you guys feeling about everything?
Man, I personally feel like I have to do what I have to do to pursue, to see justice. I'm not like in anger, or it's not about revenge. It's about justice. There's a big difference there. Something like that, if the individuals are not held accountable for the crimes they have committed, it sends a very bad signal to the Jiu-Jitsu community. So I would continue, to aid the justice system, to do what's right. Ultimately, it's the people from California that are pursuing this against these individuals. It's not me. I'm just aiding the process, and I'll continue to do for as long as it's needed. It's tiring, but man, I'm a fighter. Dave is a fighter. So a lot of things in our lives are tiring. As long as there's a purpose and there's a reason to continue to move forward, we will. And again, it's not about revenge. It's really about seeing justice. So this thing doesn't go with impunity. That's what I'm personally trying to avoid.
Yeah, and like Flavio mentioned, this happened at this point. It's been a year, right? Coming up on December 18th, it's been a year, and we were hopeful that at this point that things would be settled either way. But I think it's very common in the American justice system, as it is in justice systems all around the world, that these things take time, and we knew that, we were going to have to be patient, and that we were going to have to be motivated to see it through, because there's times where these things can drag on, and it can be a bit frustrating. But I believe that, again, like Flavio said, we're not motivated by evil thoughts or malice. Our motivation here is to eradicate this type of behavior from a martial art, from a sport that we love so much, and it's dear to us, and it's given myself, Flavio, and hundreds of people around the world, actually thousands now, the blessing of the ability to become a better version of themselves through jiu-jitsu, and also for many of us, the ability to make a living through it. And our goal is just to see it continue to improve more and more in a positive way. And these types of things can do damage to the amazing trajectory that our amazing martial art has taken over the last couple of decades. And we just want to make sure that jiu-jitsu is a beautiful thing for many more people for decades to come. But I want to say one more thing as far as how we're doing. But the reality is, I want to say one thing about Flavio. And I'm not just saying this because obviously we have a very close relationship and we're good friends and we work together. But the most amazing thing that's happened in the course of 2019 is I've seen someone who I knew always had the ability to have a tough mind and an ability to handle lots of pressure and work with various projects at any given moment, while at the same time still training at the highest levels, and until very recently still competing at a very high level. Even through this whole thing, and this has taken a toll on him. I've been there with him. I wasn't there at the actual incident, but I was there with him the next day, and pretty much every day since, we've been kind of fighting these battles side by side and coming up with, along with some incredible people within the Gracie Barra organization, team and friends and family from all around the world. But what I've seen this year is that even through this, it was so important to Flavio and to myself to some extent, but obviously as the head of the organization in North America, that nothing stopped with Gracie Barra. And even through this whole thing, Gracie Barra has had an incredible year, right? We've continued to grow. We've added many more schools throughout North America and the world. We've worked on some very important projects that will give more tools and resources to our community of school owners. There's more and more students training at Gracie Barra, and the organization as a whole is as strong as it's ever been. So what I want to say is that even through this, and it's been difficult, and there's ups and there's downs, and at times we're feeling positive, at times we find ourselves a bit frustrated with this particular situation. But as far as Gracie Barra, it has stopped nothing, and nothing will stop our mission to to bring jiu-jitsu to as many people as we can around the world.
I was just gonna say it definitely has the way and Kevin brought this up earlier, but the way you've handled this, not just like you, Flavio, as a person, but as an organization, has it seems like it's garnered a lot of goodwill with people. Just like the level of calm that is being applied here. There's no threats being made by Gracie Barra athletes about anything. It seems like it's very, very measured. Was that something intentional, or is it just the type of people that train at Gracie Barra?
Well, both. Definitely both. You know, the people from Gracie Barra are just amazing people, you know. And whoever doesn't stick around too much, it's because you don't share the same values, so they might as well just go do their own thing, and we respect that. But, you know, people from Gracie Barra are truly incredible people. And throughout this process, Master Carlos and the leaders, the regional directors from Gracie Barra, the message that was being sent out was that everybody stay calm. The worst thing that could possibly happen is any one of us resorting to violence as a retaliation for this. Let's everybody stay calm, and let's make sure that nobody does anything harmful to anyone. You know, let's find clarity and let's do what's right. You know, so I think it has to do with the leadership of Gracie Barra taking a very strong stance on, you know, everybody staying calm and not doing anything crazy, but also the people from Gracie Barra understanding that in times like this, you know, if you retaliate with violence, then you get dragged down to the level of the perpetrators, you know, and the best thing to do is just to exercise self-control as much as you feel like you can, and you feel like you want to do something, you don't, and let things calm down so you can see what's the next best step, and then the next best step. Not for our own benefit, but for the benefit of the entire jiu-jitsu community. And that's an important thing. Our north to navigate through this madness was really like, what should we do jiu-jitsu comes out of this without being, damaged. The reputation of jiu-jitsu, the jiu-jitsu community, the Gracie Barra community. We're not just thinking about, we got to do whatever we have to do for Flavio. No, it wasn't about me. Actually, this whole thing was never about me. I never had a problem with Ralph. He wanted to send a message to Gracie Barra, right? And he wanted to spread fear. That's what he wanted to do, I think, at least. And the way their organization responded, I think, was great, and it was beautiful. And for me personally, it was incredible to receive a lot of support. But I hope we can continue moving on that pace, doing what's right, without trying to hurt anybody or retaliate with violence or anything like that, but always aiding the justice system, and trust that it's up to the judge, it's up to the justice system to decide on what to do in a situation like this.
Yeah, and if you remember, Kevin, just a few days after the incident, Gracie Barra came out with an official statement. One, to let everybody know what happened, just so there wasn't any rumors flying around about this, that, or the other. So we want to be very clear about what took place in Anaheim in December of 2018. But we also wanted to make it very clear that there will be zero tolerance for any type of vigilante, justice or violence from anyone within Gracie Barra. We've always taken the stance that we believe in the justice system, and that we'll see it through in that way.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it seems like a lot of the policies and mission statements of Gracie Barra seem to be really focused on presenting a very unified front in face of things, and you get that with aspects like the commitments that all the athletes make, the uniform policy. Do you think that all those teachings that and things that Gracie Barra does differently than other schools all helped create this sort of unified front where everybody knows, hey, we're not going to go crazy about this. We're going to handle it well. We're going to stay calm. Would you say that?
Yeah, 100%. It's about unity, but it's about positivity. It's about using jiu-jitsu to build something better, a better version of ourselves, a better community, a better world, So when you're the organization, what ties us together, right? What bonds us together? It's a common set of beliefs that we can stay united. We go to compete, and we compete for something bigger than ourselves. And when we're teaching classes, we're not just teaching the classes for our students and for our community, but when I'm teaching class here in Phoenix, Arizona, I'm representing all of the other 800 and something schools around the world, and I'm representing all of those that came before me. That's the mentality. So when we get, and it's very tight. It's incredibly tight. And whenever we get hit as a team, that unites us even more. It's like, okay, so how are we supposed to respond to this? So all of those links, those connections, they existed prior to the incident, right? So then when the incident happened, it kind of, it's observed a lot of that shock, and it helped us respond, I believe at least, positively to this episode.
All right. Well, that's I think that's about everything. Everybody's caught up to speed as much as we can be with the process. The gears are turning, and now everybody knows what's going on. Flavio and Dave, I really appreciate you coming on. Always welcome again, but we'll probably just geek out the entire time and focus on all the fun stuff instead of, like stuff that's a bummer. Do you guys have any closing remarks that you want to end on, or?
Anything else?
Well, no, I would just say, Kevin, we really appreciate the opportunity to come and do this podcast with you. I know it's a new podcast for you and Kevin, and we wish you a ton of success with that. And like I said, it's been a great pleasure to sit down and be a part of this. I think the main goal for us is just to make sure that the story, the event is told properly, and people understand what really happened. Because sometimes when you look at social media and you see some of the things that are written out there, it's just so far from what actually happened. When someone says something like, two guys got in a fight with each other. Why is this going in this direction? It's just some of the misconceptions that are out there sometimes are mind-boggling. So it's through these opportunities that we're able to clearly define what took place that day. But more importantly, I think it was nice to sit down and talk to you about a few other things besides this incident, and we appreciate that. And anytime, I know Flavio and myself would love to chat with you anytime you have anything that you want to know about Gracie Barra. And
Kevin G might just start calling you up randomly. Hey guys, I want to just talk about having beards and being a tough big guy, and I'll just be sitting here with my coffee. But but yeah, no, this was really fun. I'm still so nervous just because I didn't think this would go well, and I'm happy it didn't completely turn out bad. But you'll be able to see this when it comes out. I think that's it. I have been Kevin Bradley, joined by Kevin G, who ducked out earlier, and Flavio and Dave. Be seeing you.
Thank you. Good luck to you, man.
Thanks, Kevin. Take care.